This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Welcome to episode 214 of the CineSnob Podcast. I am Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
I feel like I was really loud on that. Was I loud in your ear, Cody?
A little bit, yeah, but I took it for enthuom. So
yeah, it's just
I'm with that.
Fucking pumped.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, god damn it. Yeah, welcome back to another summer movie episode of the CineSnob Podcast, which for the second week in a row, biggest movie of the week is our top movie. Last week was Black Widow. This week, Space Jam: A New Legacy. Both also released at home, but still topping the box office.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
So, I mean, not that there's a lot of competition, but I finally have to go back to the movie theater for next week.
Yep, me too.
Is it Snake Eyes? Is Snake Eyes the big one next week?
Snake Eyes and Old are the two big releases next week.
Oh, you know what? I don't know that I have anything for Old. I gotta check my.
Yeah, apparently the embargo for Old expires on Thursday evening or Thursday middle of the day.
Looks like Shyamalan is back to his old shittiness, maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? Anyway, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when it premiered. But Cody, Loki finished up this week. Did you ever catch up to Loki?
I am
Disney
not.
Plus?
I have to catch up tonight and tomorrow for the other podcast that I do, The Ramble. We're doing one of the things is like a top 5 Loki moments, and I've only seen the first 2 episodes. So,
you never picked up from the screeners that we got?
No, I didn't, and not because I didn't like it. I just got caught up in some other stuff. I was finishing watching some other shows, and it just kind of fell by the wayside a little bit. So. Yeah, I'm still behind.
Well, I'm not gonna spoil anything for you here, though. It did take a strange journey from episode 2 to episode 6. Like, it didn't end the same show that it began.
Neither did WandaVision.
Yeah, WandaVision really turned into just a normal Marvel movie at the end. At least Loki. Do you know anything about? Have you heard anything about how Loki ended? Okay,
no.
We won't talk about it because there is some stuff that I wanted to talk about with you eventually, but I'll wait till you're done.
Yeah, by the next few days, I'll have it done.
Anyway, but something to come out of Loki's success is news that the executive producer, the showrunner for Loki, a guy named Matt Shankman, has been tapped to direct.
Actually, he is the showrunner. Well, so to be technical on this, these don't have showrunners, they have head writers on Disney Plus, but he was the head writer on WandaVision.
Sorry, you're right. Why was I thinking Loki?
Because Loki
just
because it just ended.
What? No, we were talking the other day about Loki. Whoever the head writer of that was doing Star Wars or some Star Wars film. Shit, I don't remember. There's a lot of success coming out of these Disney Plus shows. Anyway,
including this.
Yeah, this is great. I'm getting it all wrong. I'm sorry. WandaVision director Matt Shankman is going to direct whatever the next Star Trek movie is that's not the one they announced before. Matt Shackman. I'm sorry, I said Shankman, but it's Shackman. Anyway,
yeah, so
I fucked this all up. So Cody, what are the details of this?
So look, we have to remember it's not the Tarantino one. It's also not the Noah Hawley one that was supposed to happen, and it's also not the S.J. Clarkson one that was supposed to happen. But this is a supposedly like 4th iteration of this Star Trek sequel that Shankman is doing, with a script from Lindsay Beer and Geneva Robertson Dworet, the latter of which wrote Captain Marvel or co-wrote Captain Marvel, as well as Tomb Raider, the Alicia Vikander version. And so it's the first Star Trek film written by female screenwriters. But yeah, it's part of the it's being produced by Bad Robot / J.J. Abrams. So assuming this is going to follow the same sort of Kelvin timeline or Kelvin stuff with Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine and Zoe Saldana and all that cast. So I don't know, man. Like this movie in / franchise feels a bit cursed at this point, where this is literally the 4th iteration, and probably more than that when you consider the ideas that never even got announced. There was like the Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth version that is not even included in those 4. So, they Deadline says that it was going to fast track and start production in spring, but I'll believe it when I see it, and I mean that like sincerely. Like I'll believe that when I'm actually sitting in the theater. So,
okay, was there? Maybe I'm misremembering something. Like I did all this Disney Plus Marvel shit. Wasn't there another female directed a plan for a female directed Star Trek movie that wasn't this 4th one? It wasn't the S.J. Clarkman one. It was something else that was supposed to be like separate from any kind of sequel. It was going to be an original movie.
I thought that was the S.J. Clarkson one, but apparently not, because I guess the S.J. Clarkson one was the Hemsworth and.
All I gotta say is that was always a terrible idea. That completely misunderstood the point of whatever characterization of Captain Kirk had been developed over the years. Not that the Abrams one really gave a shit about any of that stuff, considering he was like, did you ever see Star Trek Beyond?
Yes.
So like by that one, he's considering like retiring. Like he looks like he's like 32 years old. Fuck you. These movies have not been. I mean, the spectacle and adventure wise, they were fun for the most part, but plot wise, they've been really terrible. None more than Into Darkness, which made no sense. But so the Tarantino one was always the one that I was like, whatever, this is never fucking happening. I knew that was happening. The Noah Hawley one intrigued me because I was a fan of his sort of weirdness, especially with Legion, which I don't think you ever saw. Did you?
I've seen a few episodes of Legion, but not more than like maybe 2 or 3.
That being, obviously Fargo was just sort of reinvented entirely for his version of Fargo was reinvented entirely. It had really nothing concrete to do with the Coen Brothers movie, but with Legion, he was playing in the X-Men sandbox, whatever that might have been. I never really knew anything about this Clarkson one.
That was the Hemsworth and Pine.
But I always thought that was supposed to be wasn't.
Yeah, because
anyway.
I know what you're talking about, but I think that I think the one. It was always so unclear because these movies just kind of existed as announcements and rumors rather than having like a firm idea of like synopsis or anything like that. So like, the Tarantino one, seemed to only exist as an idea that had a writer attached to it and a producer, but nobody. I think it was based on. They said it was based on an old episode or something like that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look. I don't know how many of these start. You've only seen the Abrams stuff, right? Or did you ever go back?
Oh, here we go. In March 2021, Star Trek Discovery writer Kalinda Vasquez was hired by Paramount to pen a new Star Trek film based to be on an original story.
Yeah, okay, that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah. But that was still produced by J.J. Abrams as well. So I'm assuming that one's not happening.
That must just be some residual deal for him. Like it's not he's not. I don't know that he would actively be involved in something like that, because I don't think he was really actively involved in Star Trek Beyond.
Sure, but I don't think they would have concurrent Bad Robot Star Trek products. I have to assume that this new one is replacing whatever that was.
But what I mean is, that just may be like a part of an overall deal. Kind of like if you ever watch Cobra Kai, Will Smith is an executive producer because he still owns the rights to when he had the kid, the one with his kid in it. So it doesn't really, Will Smith's not ever. He just gets a paycheck. Anyway, whatever. You've never seen anything other than the Abrams stuff, right?
No, I've seen Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
But aside from that, no.
I have a fondness for the original Star Trek movies. I think we've talked about before. It's a weird part of Hollywood history in that, this was the first Star Trek film was a huge thing to happen because it was one of the first times that something that had been canceled was revived for the fans in a major way. But that movie sucks. It's boring and ponderous and overlong and kind of ugly looking. I think Star Trek 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it really set the tone for the franchise moving forward. The weird thing about the legacy of that stuff is, if you look, sequels weren't considered like cash cows like they are now. So they progressively got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So like Star Trek 2 reused a lot of footage from the original film. Star Trek 3 might as well have been shot like in my garage. Star Trek 4 they shot mostly in what was at the time modern day San Francisco. It was like just 1986 San Francisco. So there's the idea that these things need to get bigger. I don't know that it's necessarily the right way to do Star Trek. I don't know. I mean, that as it's always sort of thrived more on TV. And you had stuff like The Next Generation, which was very popular, and then when they when they went to making movies about that, it just ended. Every movie ended with fucking Patrick Stewart getting into a fist fight with a villain. Like, come on, no one's buying this anymore. Yeah. Again, like you, I'll believe it. Literally believe it when I see it. So, anywho, speaking of, not speaking of, that's a terrible transition. But speaking of television, in a way, kind of. Star Trek is on TV. The Emmys were announced. A couple of surprises and a couple of things that we covered on this show got Emmy nominations. The first one that you're very excited about, and one that I'm pleased that happened. Bo Burnham's Inside received a whole slew of Emmy nominations. And then the puzzling one, the one that seems to have pissed everyone off, is the Disney Plus recording of Hamilton from 5 years ago. Got a whole shit ton of nominations too.
Yeah, including acting nominations and stuff. And also, too, a strange one, I don't know if you saw this, but like Boys State was nominated too, which feels weird because I feel like that would have been submitted to the Oscars, but maybe since it wasn't nominated, they just submitted it to the Emmys. But it did get nominated for documentary for the Emmys.
I did not see that. That's strange. Yeah. Usually they have rules about that. I'm not sure what the Television Academy's rules are, but again, this may have been another one of those times where they just sort of throw everything out rule book wise.
Yeah, it could be.
Because certainly Hamilton is not. I mean that none of that.
It's not a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, it's literally is like something you'd buy at the gift shop of Hamilton, and they put it on Disney Plus. And anyway, so Bo Burnham's Inside. You're going to see that in a theater coming up.
Yeah, Cody. So it got nominated for 6 Emmys, and Bo was the single highest nominated individual person. I believe 5 of those 6 he's nominated for. I think that he's not technically listed as a producer on it for some crazy reason, according to IMDb. But he got nominated for a bunch of music and writing and directing and editing. And and he's doing a single day engagement on Thursday that's been like selling out shows, and they've been adding more theaters and shows. So I'll be checking it out in a theater on Thursday night.
Is there anything different about it? Is there going to be like a live intro or anything?
I don't know. There might be. I mean, it's hard to say. It's weird that these. It's unusual that a Netflix release would be put into theaters after it's premiered on Netflix. Like sometimes you would get like the concurrent ones, the day and date type stuff. But the fact that this is coming out in theaters after its premiere is pretty interesting, I thought. And it seems to be selling out shows. So
how many times will you have seen it when you go to see this?
In full, this will probably be the third time I've seen it.
Okay.
I've listened to it a bunch, like on Spotify, but in terms of actually watching it, this will be like 3 or 4.
Cool.
So.
I mean, I wonder if it'll play differently on.
I don't know. It is.
Screen.
Even though it is sort of like confined, it is cinematic in a way. It is. There's a lot of carefully, like more so than any other stand-up special that you'll watch or comedy special that you'll watch. It's really well executed. So I guess we'll see how it plays in a theater. But good for him that it's selling out. I mean, like Draft House is doing 2 sold-out shows. I'm going at Embassy Santikos, and it's almost sold out. So it seems to be taking everyone by storm. And actually, I was surprised that it was released in time to be considered and nominated for this year's Emmys. I thought that it had been past the deadline, but
I don't know how the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences does it. I know how the regional Emmys do it. Mm-hmm. You have a certain window, and like so long as it's within that certain point, it can make it in. I don't know what, and also I don't know what the submission process is for like that, like because that's can be something like I wonder if you can submit something that's going to make the deadline, but it hasn't been released yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's
a good question.
Anyway, cool. Anything else before we move on?
Nah, we got a packed show. Let's get into it.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
First up, it's finally here. Finally, Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
We rapping now? We rapping? Show 'em who you really are, Notorious P.I.G. Oh boy, here goes nothing. What up? It's Porky Pig. They call me P-double-L-G. Step to me, he don't want no trouble. I was famous before the internet. Since 1935, I've been getting respect. This pig is lit. I'm super legit. Every time I'm out in public, people asking me for pics. Nobody knows you when you walk the street. How your last name, rhythm, and you're still off beat. From beginning to the end, I'm here for all the smoke. Your squad ain't all star. Your squad is all jokes. And this with one bar, most famous of all quotes. This battle is now over. That's all, folks.
Oh shit! Oh, anyway, sorry. By the way, I forgot I had this within arm's reach that I bought from some bootlegger.
It's a Bill Murray one.
It's a Bill Murray one. That's the only reason
I'm
I have
so
it.
glad you picked that clip instead of a trailer. Thank you.
I had to pick that clip. That was the only clip that I could have possibly picked. Yeah, so if you don't know, this is the sequel-ish to 1996's Space Jam. Probably the definition of our generational divide, Cody.
Yeah.
That is like the Rosetta Stone for generational divide. When it comes to like the millennials and then my whatever you call this quasi Gen X thing that I'm in, that's the that's the one thing that you're like, nope. That's when it no, because we can get on board with other people around my same age, my age and your age we can agree on like Mighty Ducks and stuff. Not that I do, but like my sister's was a fan of the Mighty. Anyway, Space Jam, first movie, cultural touchstone, terrible movie. Let's just put it that way. But it's entertaining and it's sure. But to me it's entertaining in it's entertaining in its terribleness.
Yeah.
Cuz it's so of the 90s like hyper like the peak popularity of the NBA of
Yes.
the 90s. And it's a ridiculous concept all around. But anyway, so here we are 25 years later, Space Jam: A New Legacy, featuring this generation's not quite so likable best basketball player in the world, LeBron James. Cody, tell us about Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Yeah.
And what you thought of it, and what you thought of that rap from Porky Pig.
I mean, look, the rap was straight
Flawless.
fire. We all know this. So Space Jam, came out when I was 7 years old, and I loved it as a kid. It came out at the right time for me. I was really, as a kid, I was into basketball, so it was this cross section. Even though it wasn't, it was the Looney Tunes playing basketball. It's still a basketball-ish movie featuring, the most famous basketball player of all time. And I watched it all the time. I played the video game. I was just a big fan of it.
Wait, I don't know that I've ever known about the video game. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to assume, thinking about it, like, of course there's a video game, but I don't know that I ever played it.
Yeah,
Wow.
I believe it was a PlayStation 1 game.
Oh, that's probably why. Okay,
Yeah, I
that
think
would
I
make
had it-
sense.
Yeah, I had it for PlayStation 1.
Okay.
And so I was a big fan, and we can go back and forth on whether or not the merits of that movie, but there's a couple things about it that I think stand true, which are that it's fucking weird, and not only is it weird, but it's weird in a way that I think is funny. It features like these gonzo weird performances from Bill Murray, and to a lesser degree, like Wayne Knight is like ridiculous and funny in the movie, and
I mean, I talk about it being a bad movie, but it's an entertaining bad movie.
yeah, I mean, I think the humor is like legitimately subversive at times, and
Yeah.
it is. I think it leans into a lot of the funny stuff, and it features like superstar athletes in a funny way. So like like Charles Barkley gets laughs, and Muggsy Bogues gets laughs, and that kind of
Sean
thing.
Bradley in there,
and Sean Bradley, and
is it Alonzo Mourning
it's Patrick
or
Ewing.
Patrick Ewing?
Yeah,
Okay,
so it's
sorry.
Muggsy Bogues, Larry Johnson, Patrick Ewing.
Oh, okay,
Charles
I was thinking of
Barkley.
I was thinking of Larry John. I was thinking of like Charlotte Hornets, and I thought Alonzo Mourning originally, but
Yeah.
Grandmama. How could I forget?
Yeah.
Anyway,
So it's got that. I think the thing about it, though, if you look at it from like the cultural touchstone perspective, obviously it's meant to be a Looney Tunes movie, and having that be an extension of that universe. But when you throw in LeBron James, the NBA has changed in the last 25 years, and it's become much more of an international game, and the superstardom has been spread out amongst a lot of different players. And so in 1996, Michael Jordan is the basketball player in the league. And nowadays, LeBron James is not the same, even though he might be the most famous of them. There's a dozen guys who could have been in this. I mean, at one point, Blake Griffin was going to star in the Space Jam movie like years ago.
Yeah.
So, the stardom has been spread out to where it's not this like ubiquitous figure that Michael Jordan was. So already, I think it's got a little bit of stuff like of a hill to climb. So based on the trailers, it appeared as if this movie was going to be an opportunity for Warner Brothers to explore its intellectual properties. And this, similar to what you saw in something like it's getting compared a lot to Ready Player One. It is strange to me how much it feels like a very cheap ass IP mining. Because essentially the first section of the movie is about going through the Warner Brothers IP and going through the server verse or whatever. First, look, the story makes no fucking sense at all. Like right off the bat, it doesn't make any sense about Warner Brothers is trying to use an AI to create content, and what they figured out was they can stick LeBron James into any IP, which is just weird. It just doesn't make any sense.
And they do it in a cartoony format, so it's not even placing him in seamlessly
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so for no reason he has to play a basketball game to get out of it. Like there's no set like at least Space Jam, for whatever it is, has a plot point that makes sense, right? Like they suck the talent from the NBA players and now he's got to go and play a basketball game against these like that at least has some semblance of sense versus Don Cheadle's character just being like, I'm going to challenge you to a basketball game and we're going to delete the Looney Tunes, by the way. Like it sucks. It's stupid. So he goes to the Toon World and meets Bugs Bunny, which again, all of these Looney Tunes are just pale imitations of better versions of the voiceovers and the voices. I don't ever recall Bugs Bunny calling Michael Jordan Doc 1,000 times in the first Space Jam.
Look, I mean, the voices they're fine. All the people that did them before have died or moved on or whatever.
Well, I think even Billy West Bugs Bunny is better than this guy, or whoever's doing it now. But
this guy's like a Filipino dude from Canada.
Is he?
Yeah, no, for real. I forget his name. Yeah, he's a Canadian guy. Regardless, Anyway, so I think it's fine, but it's not. I mean, I don't think it's his fault. The writing really lets him down all 19 screenwriters.
The 6 screenwriters, yeah. But so he goes to Toon World, and then then they have to like wrangle up the Looney Tunes who are in different Warner Brothers properties, and this is where it gets fucking confusing because, like, first of all, it is the worst CGI you'll ever see with just the Looney Tunes just like copy and pasted onto scenes of other movies. But, like, the IP that they use, like, no child cares about any of this. Like, you think any child is going to, be like, oh, they're going to Casablanca, and they're going to Austin Powers, and they're going to The Matrix. Everything is, like, 25 years old. And even down to the references that they have, like, there's a fucking MC Hammer joke. Like, what child is going to laugh at that? Like, it is the most baffling like sources of humor that you've seen, and even when you get to like them playing the basketball game, the IP that shows up, it's like A Clockwork Orange, and it's
I mean, yeah, that's been talked about 10,000 times. I think the biggest thing about that, and I'll get into it a little, is just how terrible it looks.
No, it's clearly like a bunch of CGI things that are just looped over and over again,
or it's like day player actors in shitty costumes. Mm-hmm. Like, for whatever reason, there's a very prominent shot of, like, both. It's like Batman and Robin, the Adam West versions.
Penguin.
Right. The Batman and Robin Adam West versions, which they're just dumpy guys in tights. There's a very terrible Danny DeVito Penguin. And then there's one of the Wizard of Oz flying monkeys, who's clearly wearing like a leotard, and like you can see like the outline of his body sometimes when he moves. It's just,
yeah,
and they're just looped like it's like they're like their old Mike Tyson's Punch-Out audience members.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, and so it's I think when it becomes a Looney Tunes, I mean the first 30 minutes are rough. I mean it's interminable the first like 30 minutes. When it becomes a Looney Tunes movie, again, I don't think it really captures the essence. I've seen a lot of people talking about nostalgia with this movie. To me, this has no DNA of the original Space Jam at all for me. Yeah. And that's coming from someone who has watched that movie a lot.
Oh, no, I 100% agree. Like, this might as well be, like, a reboot.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a sequel. Like, there's some passing mentions to it happening before, but
yeah,
it has nothing to do with the first one.
Well, and here's the other thing about it is that, again, say what you will about the merits of the basketball element of the original Space Jam, but this becomes more about a video game than anything else, where it's like LeBron's kid in the movie designed a video game and they have to play that video game, but it almost is it's like so far away from basketball that like they're scoring like literally the final score of the game, and I'm not going to tell you who wins because that would be spoiling it, but they have like 1,000 points because someone scored 700 points on like some fucking gimmick within the game, and it's not about basketball. It's about video games.
It's like he created the NBA Jam version of MTV's Rock and Jock. Did you ever watch the Rock and Jock where they would be like, "Here's the 1,000-point mark. Let's see if Dean Cain can hit the 1,000-point free throw while Kenny Lofton guards him." Those are real participants in the Rock and Jock tournament.
I remember.
Okay.
It becomes so far removed from basketball. I think someone had pointed out that in the movie LeBron scores like 6 points or like makes like 3 shots or something like that in the course of it. So, and then it just gets ridiculous. I can safely say that I laughed once at a very stupid joke that's actually a stupid cameo that I think is actually funny. Aside from that, this movie is very, very bad, and I think worse than I even thought it could be, to the point where I was not enjoying any of it. And I think, the Looney Tunes stuff I don't think works. You get shitty stuff like rapping Porky Pig. You get shitty stuff like the granny, all the granny stuff is terrible. I don't think you get to the core of Bugs at all, really, even though he's the main character. I think you get a lot of funny Daffy Duck stuff in the original Space Jam. I don't think Daffy does anything here. And LeBron is not a good actor. Neither was Michael Jordan. I think we all know that. But LeBron doesn't bring anything to the table in terms of like chops, certainly. And the whole thing just feels like like again, they, the constant cutting to the Warner Brothers characters. Again, the references are so outdated. I just don't understand how a child would find the cultural touchstone to it. And I feel like the nostalgia is like one generation too far removed. And it is a baffling experience.
So, okay. So the original Space Jam, like I said, I don't think it's a good movie, but it is. I do recognize the cultural significance of it, not the least of which was the soundtrack, which spawned a bona fide hit in R. Kelly's "I Believe I Can Fly." That song is still, R. Kelly's troubles aside, one of the ones that, it's on like a 90s R&B playlist all the time. For what it's worth, it really does capture that sort of zeitgeist of the NBA at the time. Mm-hmm. And it did have, like plotting wise, it actually had a little bit of, like, made a little bit of real world sense, because it starts with Jordan in baseball. Mm-hmm. Again, it's not plotting wise, it too has some bafflingly stupid references. I think specifically of the joke about the Mighty Ducks as a terrible joke. Also, the random Pulp Fiction reference that's in the end game. Yeah. But all in all, it is what it is. I think I've warmed to it over these past 25 years. This is hot fucking garbage that has no redeeming factor. Like, it's not even, it's not even entertainingly bad. It's just bad. Like the first, my wife and I were watching it last night, and like you get through that, the first 30 minutes, you're like, are there going to be any fucking Looney Tunes in this movie? Because the first half hour, or almost first half hour, is LeBron doing whatever horse shit. Like they set up his character as like this basketball maniac who didn't even have time to play Game Boy games. Who then like is telling his kids they need to devote themselves to basketball so they can better their lives or whatever. Like, this motherfucker has generational wealth. Like, his kids won't have to do work, like real work. LeBron is probably worth $200 million easily at this point. And him trying to like them trying to convince you that he's trying to push his kids to play basketball to better their lives. Like, fuck you. Just stop. Just could we I don't know what the movie thought it was doing with LeBron, if it thought it was making him likable, but it does not make him likable at all.
No.
And plus it goes through there are some decent digs at him leaving Cleveland that Don Cheadle's character gets to deliver. Don Cheadle is clearly in his own movie. Just I mean, we talk about it a lot, like the one dude having fun. It's clearly Don Cheadle. That's like, just whatever, man. Fuck it. Man, this is just, I mean, I can't even talk about how bad this is because it's so bad. Like, there's no reason that this is a Looney Tunes movie. So as much as I faintly praise the original, it does fundamentally misunderstand the Looney Tunes, which, you know, I don't know why turning them into basketball players became a thing, because apparently now they're just basketball players. I don't know. This one has no reason to even associate with the Looney Tunes. Like, there's a tiny little nugget of a plot line that is not developed, but is barely there, that Bugs Bunny is strictly using LeBron. Did you pick up on that at all? Because, like,
yes.
LeBron makes this like list of of the team that would make up the best team. Clearly, like, he's picking like Superman and Wonder Woman and shit. But Bugs Bunny is just using it to collect his friends. And, like, there's an interesting nugget there that Bugs Bunny is just a sociopath to LeBron, which would make sense, at least a little bit, with Looney Tunes. But also, Bugs Bunny also sort of dies on screen, and the movie just doesn't really like reference that at all, or resolve that. I'm getting flustered here because this movie is this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Like, for real. This is so terrible.
Yeah.
That everyone involved should be just ashamed. I mean, I don't get what the point is
and also,
of any of it.
Like Ryan Coogler made this happen, which is weird that this is part of his production deal.
Yeah. But didn't he come in, or the director, Malcolm D. Lee, didn't he come into it later? Like, wasn't there another director before? Like, not that this thing was like creatively, like, oh, the first whoever it was just couldn't handle it. They probably just were like, no, I'm not squeezing the fucking Iron Giant and King Kong into this goddamn
Terrence
thing.
Nance was originally supposed to direct it.
Look, man, I don't get it. I don't know what they were going for with this. Like, it's shameless. It's shameless IP mining. Like, at least Ready Player One, I get the complaints with that, but that was at least the plot line of the book.
Right.
You know, that all this shit was melded together. This is just strictly like, hey, who the fuck else can we throw in there to pick up? Like,
it's a commercial for Warner Brothers. I mean, it's an advertisement. And
I mean, you know, even I fell for it here and there. I'm like, oh, look, there's Space Ghost, you know, floating above the, like, oh, there's wow, like, that's a deep cut. Like, there's fucking Thundar the Barbarian. Like, oh, huh. And then, like,
but
Rick
they're
and
just
Morty.
audience members. Like,
I know.
There's a Rick and Morty part, but, like, again, the references of the IP, like, they don't mind, like, the biggest, like, actual usage of it is placing these Looney Tunes characters shittily into old scenes of movies. Like, the Mad Max Fury Road one was like, fuck this. Like, when I saw that, I was like, this sucks.
I did say fuck that to that one. The one that genuinely made me laugh because it was so bizarre was the Game of Thrones one. The Foghorn Leghorn in Game of Thrones. Like it made absolutely no sense, but it was at least weird enough. God
yeah, and like
damn,
the rules were just weird. Where like sometimes LeBron was a cartoon, and then he was in human form, and other parts of the IP stuff. I just yeah.
Oh my God, this this is a terrible, terrible piece of cultural garbage. What is your grade for Space Jam: A New Legacy?
So look, is the original Space Jam movie great? Yes, it is. We both know this. Look, for what it's for. Yes, that's what we've been talking about for 20 minutes. Yeah. Yes, so, for all of the faults, for all of the generational divide, and looking at it objectively, Space Jam, the original Space Jam, looks like a fucking masterpiece compared to this movie. It is better in every single way, and it actually makes some semblance of sense. It actually utilizes the Looney Tunes in a way that's entertaining. It's got weird performances. This movie has no soul. It is just a shameless mining of IP, throwing the Looney Tunes without any regard to what makes the Looney Tunes funny and interesting. It features terrible performances. It doesn't make any sense. It's more about video games than it is basketball. It is worse than I thought that it even could be. So for me, I'm giving it a gentleman's F. I'm giving it a D-.
A D-. Wow. Hey, look, we have another comment. Someone asking us if we like cartoons. I mean, I do. Loving that 59. I do. If you look behind me, there's a bunch. Why did I get the feeling this is going to start trying to sell us followers again like last time?
Maybe.
Anyway, sorry, you said the gentleman's F?
Yeah.
The D-.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to bring up one more thing that oh, look at this. Hold on. We got this Bosco, a reference to Bosco. When it was just Bosco from 1929 to 1933. There was I think a Tiny Toons that referenced Bosco. Did you ever watch Tiny Toons, Cody?
I did.
Before your time.
Anyway. I did.
So I was thinking of this too. You've seen Napoleon Dynamite, right?
Sure.
Have you ever seen Gentlemen Broncos?
No.
So Gentlemen Broncos is a 2009 film from director Jared Hess, who of course made Napoleon Dynamite. It is god awful. But you know how there's people that love Napoleon Dynamite, and there's people that absolutely hate it, right?
Sure.
Like it's a very polarizing film. So much so that Netflix famously had a problem with their algorithm. It all comes back to the algorithm.
Algorithm?
Yeah. Did you remember hearing about this where they couldn't?
No.
Napoleon Dynamite broke their algorithm because it was so polarizing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Gentlemen Broncos was released in 2009, and it is fucking terrible. It's weird, like Napoleon Dynamite, and it is terrible. And I can't remember who told me this, but I've always taken it to heart, is that if you watched Gentlemen Broncos and thought it was terrible, you finally had the insight into what people that thought Napoleon Dynamite was terrible, how Napoleon Dynamite was terrible. Like if you like Napoleon Dynamite and hated Gentlemen Broncos, you can just you're just, whatever, 5 years removed from it, and you can see exactly oh, okay, I get it. And I think I feel like that's how this new Space Jam is for people that were fans of the original. This is way, way worse than the original Space Jam. And I don't say that to try to score cheap points. This movie fucking blows. And I'm not even gonna be a gentleman about it. Fuck this movie. This movie gets an F from me. Fuck you, Space Jam: A New Legacy. It's not even fun. There's nothing fun about it. It's not bad enough to be funny. This basketball game is interminable. It's so long. It's like half the movie.
Yeah.
God almighty. And I don't even like LeBron. As a play, I feel like LeBron has ruined what am I trying to say? Like the way players stayed with their teams.
Sure.
Like LeBron opened that door.
LeBron is the sort of catalyst for the player run NBA kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and I'm not a fan of that. I mean, I get it. Like the I'm not against dudes playing where they want to play, but you got to I would prefer not to just hold a team hostage for it. Anyway,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah,
no,
so
I don't blame you for giving it a full blown F. I think for me that's reserved for something that is just like unwatchable, and I think that this is not quite there, but it's so close to being completely unwatchable.
Loving that 59 speaking the real wisdom here. I prefer Roger Rabbit over the first Space Jam. I do too. I clearly prefer Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Anyway, if you want to watch it, it's on HBO Max for the next 30 days or whatever. Or you can go to a theater if you really want to torture your fucking self. But
yeah, but don't watch it. I mean, like, truthfully, not even for like the bit or the gag or for fun or for nostalgia. Look, if you love Space Jam, do yourself a favor and don't watch this. Like, there's no nostalgia attached. Like, none. Like, zero nostalgia attached.
Forget it exists. Like I forget that Independence Day sequel exists. Like, because it's something that just took the original that both from 1996 movies that were wildly popular, and the sequels are just hot fucking garbage. Anyway, Let's move on to our next movie, Gunpowder Milkshake.
I need to exchange some books.
Come.
Scarlett's kid. How is your mother? Haven't seen her in 15 years.
Let's get you into a good book.
You'll need a Jane Austen.
A Virginia Woolf.
And an Agatha Christie. For reading.
Sam, your talents are needed. Somebody stole from us.
Who's crazy enough to steal from the firm?
Is it done?
There's a change of plan. They have an 8-year-old girl. I can't leave her to die.
Sam, you killed the wrong people. You're no longer under protection.
Some bad men are coming to hurt us. We have to go where it's safe. Hi, Mom. Am I a grandmother? God, no.
So this is a Netflix film. I guess a female John Wick, probably the easiest way to describe this.
Jane Wick,
which I thought Atomic Blonde was that also.
Sure.
Sure, whatever. Cody, tell us about Gunpowder Milkshake.
Yeah, it's in this long line of movies that is like a feminist action film that is written and directed by men. If you look at the credits here, it's an action film about this sort of and I'll get into it in a minute, but like this sort of world that's built up of seemingly assassins that
like John Wick.
Yeah, like John Wick. And so basically Karen Gillan, she plays the main character, kills the wrong person and has a bunch of people coming. Well, she kills the right person, but it's the wrong person to kill, like in terms of danger. So they, she essentially is on the run and trying to kind of protect herself over a bunch of people coming after her. Kind of like John Wick. I like Karen Gillan a lot as an actress, and was hoping for something good here. Clearly Netflix saw a lot of potential in this, as the sequel had been greenlit before the movie even came out. And I think that the biggest thing that you can say about it is that it is a sort of direct ripoff of John Wick. I mean, I know that's the easiest comparison to make, but it really has this element of, you've got the neon colors that are there everywhere. You've got this sort of like, the thing that it tries the hardest to do is this world building, the world building that goes into the John Wick movies with the Continental and the sort of like, the
old switchboard. operators.
The switchboard stuff, the fact that like nobody can do violence inside the it's John Wick is a series that I've really come around on in recent years, where I really like it, and I like all of the movies, and I think they are getting better and more fun. But this piece, it basically tries to cheat its way to the world building. Where you, instead of the Continental here, you have the library, and you have the librarians, and you have them, giving out a bunch like the feminist stuff. Again, it's feminist stuff written by men, so like there's like the real obvious shit of like all the guns are hidden in like books written by females, like whatever. It's just very heavy-handed in that sense. And I think the where this movie falters is it's like 2 hours long, and it really doesn't need to be. It's one of those movies where you're like an hour and a half, and you're like, fuck, there's still a half hour to go. Like, it seems really long. I think that the action sequences are strange, and I think this is where the movie really kind of falters, in that it tries to be stylistic and stylized, but they're not like that impressive. I don't think like you can really see the seams in like the action sequences being kind of like very choreographed and stuff. I think the other part to it is that the tone of them are weird, because like the first action sequence is like Three Stooges goofy.
Yeah, they literally call them the Boneheads.
Right. Yes, they're called the Boneheads. I just feel like the tone is off. I think that when it becomes this like Karen Gillan's character taking care of the child thing, I think that that's the kind of stuff. And the mother sort of like the mother-daughter stuff, I think that's the most successful part of the movie. But even that is really on the nose and heavy-handed. And Lena Headey disappears for like an hour.
Yeah.
In the middle of this movie, and then ends up factoring heavily into it. Speaking of people who are clearly having fun and enjoying their part, again, Paul Giamatti delivers a classic Paul Giamatti performance, which I kind of, I kind of realize how much he doesn't seem to be around all that much anymore, and I really like him as an actor. But I think it's just kind of a boring action flick, and it's there's a lot of like just again really goofy shit that happens in it. Like the stuff where like Karen Gillan's arms go out and stuff. Like it is such a like sub John Wick tier, but yet also trying so hard to be John Wick, and just kind of really not doing anything to come close to it. And again, it just it does not work where it needs to, which is it really has to establish that world that it's trying to set, and I don't think it does a very good job at it. And I think the rest of the movie suffers as a result of it.
So the sequence you mentioned, I think, was probably the most fun, where Karen Gillan's arms give out. Though that is one where the tone gets strange because it's very comedic, and the music is very comedic, and the villains she's fighting are the Boneheads. They're very comedic as well. That said, I do think it looks really cool at times. A lot of neon, a lot of weird stylistic stuff. The mythology stuff is really where it starts to lose me, though, because it just feels so much of an aping of the John Wick thing and a way to get to it quickly. You throw a bunch of weird shit at the screen and hopefully you hope that it sticks as some sort of mythology, and it doesn't. There's the diner, which is essentially the Continental, because you have to go in there unarmed, and
yeah.
You mentioned the library, and the cast is pretty stacked too. You mentioned Paul Giamatti, but then the librarians it's Angela Bassett, Carla Gugino, and Michelle Yeoh. So it's all. I mean, it's a stacked cast of great women actors. Even though Lena Headey disappears for half of it, I still think I feel like she's too young to be Karen Gillan's mom. But
yeah, they had a line about her having her pretty young, and it would have had to be like real young.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Lena Headey, I think she's like 15 years older than Karen Gillan, but I mean, she's still like whatever.
So, and I think too, I forgot to point out, but we have a mention of the movie title in the Twitch stream. One Which is that, like, the connection to the milkshake is just like she likes drinking milkshakes, and that's why it's in the title of the movie. Like,
yeah,
like what?
I don't quite understand. I was wondering what that meant, and then when I just saw that she was drinking milkshakes, it really was like, oh, she just likes milkshakes.
Yeah, I mean the title is just like word salad. Like it doesn't really mean anything in the
yeah.
context.
I don't think it's bad, but it is kind of it wears its John Wick influence heavily. And I don't know that it ever does enough with it to escape that. It feels like all those late 90s Pulp Fiction clones that were out. Like it's, maybe you got one that's interesting here and there, but you can really feel it working to be that.
Yeah.
To be the John Wick thing.
Yeah, and I also don't think, and I think they don't allow Karen Gillan to be very magnetic. And I don't know, sometimes, this may not be what it is, but sometimes when you have these British actors talking in their American accents, like some of the life is sucked out of them. Like I watched the first couple episodes of The Boys, the Amazon series, and Simon Pegg has like a really small role in it, but he's speaking in an American accent. I'm like, this could be any actor. Like this could be anyone. Like it's like there's something about, I think sometimes that the personalities can get sucked out of British actors with
which
English.
Is weird because Lena Headey just speaks with her British accent.
Right. I don't know why, and I think maybe because Karen Gillan has like a real like severe.
She's Scottish. Yeah, I don't know.
And it doesn't sound anything like Lena Headey. I don't know. But yeah.
Okay, anyway, what's your grade for Gunpowder Milkshake, Cody?
Yeah, I really wanted to like it. I wanted to enjoy it. And I appreciate what it's trying to do. But I don't think it quite hits the mark. So I give Gunpowder Milkshake a C.
I'm gonna go with a C+. I can't quite recommend it, but I don't. This may be someone's cup of tea, and it is a stacked cast of women. I mean, I think Paul Giamatti is the only male actor who has any sort of significant role. You got a bunch of who's the guy? Shit. You got a bunch of Luc Besson ugly people in it again. Just a bunch of ugly fucking dudes. But yeah, this is available on Netflix now. So let's move on to our next movie, Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain.
You are inspiring so many people with the show. You have a good karma.
Can't believe you said that.
Yeah.
Good karma?
I think so. Well...
Doesn't this concern you?
This is
as a
good
Buddhist?
karma.
Look, we're sitting here in Provence.
So?
Wait a minute. We just had this fantastic meal.
Yeah.
We're moving on to the 2011 after the 2010. Life, admittedly, for you has been pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Isn't that worrying to you? We're sitting in
No.
Provence. It's like a wine label. The next life cannot possibly be better than this. It's probably gonna suck. Enjoy every minute of this now, Eric. And pray that this is it. Because if you're right and there is a next life, we are, my friend. I may come back as a sea cucumber, but you're coming back as like a Yorkie, or, if you're lucky.
So this is a film, of course, about TV personality, sort of erstwhile chef, Anthony Bourdain, who took his own life in 2018 after, I guess, about 20 years in the public eye, and I think 2 TV shows under his belt.
Yeah, he had Parts Unknown, No Reservations. And...
3, and then it was Parts Unknown is the CNN one, right?
Yes. I think so.
Okay, he wasn't in Kitchen Confidential, but that was based on the book.
That was based on his book, yeah.
Starring
Good
Bradley
series, by the
Cooper.
way. That's a great.
I remember watching it.
Season series, yeah.
I remember watching it. Anyway, Cody, tell us about Roadrunner and what you thought of it. Wait, first of all, we should talk about the elephant in the room. There's major controversy about this. As a documentary, so we'll get to that, but.
Yeah, and I think that for once, I think the major controversy about it is really relevant to the thoughts about the movie, because I think some of the elements I think don't work as well, and then once you put them into context with the controversy, it really doesn't work well. But so this is a movie made by Morgan Neville, who is an Oscar-winning documentary filmmaker. I believe he won his Oscar for 20 Feet from Stardom.
Yeah.
But he also did the Mr. Rogers doc that everyone really loved, which was Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Yes, I looked this up before the show because I always get I get that and the Tom Hanks movie confused. Tom Hanks is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
That's right. So
Won't You Be My Neighbor is the doc, a documentary which I absolutely loved, and it was left off the Oscar list, but it's like the top grossing biographical documentary.
Yeah.
Right? That's the right word?
I think so.
Sorry.
So yeah.
Sure,
So
whatever.
It's going into Bourdain's Anthony Bourdain was a pretty massive figure even while he was alive. You can tell that through contextual clips just by seeing like Barack Obama did an episode of his CNN show with him and traveled with him and stuff like he was a really popular figure. I have a lot of friends who really looked up to Bourdain and were huge fans of his. I never really watched any of his stuff. I've never read his book. I have seen Kitchen Confidential, the TV show, but Bourdain was not a super reverential figure for me. However, I understand the sort of influence and impact that he's had on a ton of people, and even people that even people that I like Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age is a big part of this, and I'm a huge Queens of the Stone Age fan, and so I like even people like that, and like David Chang and stuff like that, who's again really popular guys who were heavily influenced and featured in the movie. But so essentially, it kind of tells the Bourdain story, starting from chef to writer to TV personality, and kind of it has interviews with a lot of people who worked with him throughout the years, producers on his TV show. Literary people who got him into writing his book, personal friends, stuff like that. So, it is interesting, the contextualized piece of it where like Bourdain was like a chef in his 40s before he kind of like broke out and became like a pop culture figure. I found that really interesting and how, he always really kind of had that writer touch. And you could see watching the clips of his shows, like how, through the voiceovers and narrations, how that was him getting his writing out. And I think, legitimately interesting type stuff. But, it shifts into really being kind of like a behind the scenes of a documentary or documentary series, like a TV show. And I think that's where it gets pretty interesting to see, how Bourdain grew from a guy who was really not comfortable in front of the camera to being really comfortable in front of the camera and talking a lot about, moments that shook him over the years and stuff like that. So, I think it does give some insight into the sort of enigmatic nature of him, and sort of his draw as a as a public figure. So the troubling piece of this documentary comes in the last like 20 minutes, where the focus shifts away from Bourdain as a TV host and as a father and as, everything that comes before it, and really starts to shift into the last like couple years of his life, and then specifically the last days of his life. And in particular, the influence that his girlfriend at the time, Aja Argento, had on his disposition. And it features a lot of interviews with people who were working with him at the time who were noticing differences. It talks about Bourdain and how he, fired longtime members of his staff on the TV show, how Argento kind of came in and like completely disrupted a shoot. And it is, to put it lightly, character assassination of Argento. Now, here's the part that gets troubling, because it opens up this Pandora's box of ethics when making a documentary in a couple different areas. Is anything that is said about Argento or implied or connections that are made off base? Maybe not. These are direct observations coming from people that were closest to Bourdain. There are unassailable facts that he fired members of his crew and stuff, and when they were trying to speak up about the direction of the show and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, because he like assigned her to direct. there you go.
Lost my headphones.
Like he had her take over directing, and of course she had she's the daughter of Dario Argento, famous Italian director, and has directed herself. So it's not like she's just someone off the street,
right? Yeah,
but clearly they were in a romantic relationship, and
and it sort of it shows and talks about the differences that people saw in her. Then it kind of goes a step further and talks about his death, and it talks about, and I apologize if anyone doesn't know this element of the story and would be, seeing this, but I think it's important to mention as we talk about the movie. It goes into talking about how, very close to his death, there was a tabloid thing that happened where Aja was seen with another man, and the film goes as far as featuring a producer from his TV show suggesting that Bourdain's suicide was an act of revenge on Argento for what had transpired. And to me, that is an interesting thing because, we're talking about the ethics of these things. That could have been something that was left out of the movie. Neville could have chosen to say, hey, this is speculation. This is one person's opinion on what could have happened or one person's interpretation, but it's left in the movie. In fact, this entire 20 minutes that sort of, at its most subtle hints that she might have had something to do with his personality at the time, to at its most direct implies that she is borderline responsible, is all left in the movie. And it feels like a very specific editorial decision. It is compounded by the idea that has come out over the week that Aja Argento was not asked to be a part of the film. She was not contacted. She does not have a voice in the film. She doesn't get to speak for herself. She doesn't get to defend herself at any point. And so it gets really, really murky here, where she is, like I said, it is borderline character assassination, and she does not have a chance to speak for herself during any of it. And it just feels kind of gross to me personally.
Yeah.
And I think, and then the other piece, of course, here is the other controversy is that Morgan Neville created an AI of Anthony Bourdain's voice to give him voiceover for like 3 lines in the movie, he says. Some of them are quoted, like New York Times piece that he did not ever say out loud, and one of them is a narration of a personal email he wrote from one of the documentary subjects here. And again, the sticky situation of documentary ethics come into play, which leads to a different discussion of, is a documentary film journalism, and do the same standard of ethics apply when you're creating a film? And is there some sort of implication that everything you're being fed is 100% accurate? Is there some sort of understanding that stuff can't be set up or manipulated in some way? I think reality TV has probably been the biggest culprit of creating some kind of a division there. But I think the thing that stands here is that the last 20 minutes of this movie are really problematic. Like I said, I think everything up to that point is interesting, and I enjoyed it, and I think it's good filmmaking, and I think that you get to see a lot of really Bourdain's influences. I think he comes across as a really interesting guy who has a lot to say. In the first bit of it, and you can see kind of like the influence he's had on other people. The last 20 minutes, though, again, like I said, is anything that's said outlandish or off base? I think you could argue no. I think that, these are the people that were closest to him and their interpretations of seeing a different person. You can actually see it in the footage where, he looks different, he sounds different, and that kind of thing. But the degree to which this movie focuses specifically on someone who is not given a chance to defend themselves, like I said, it just feels really kind of ugly and really kind of takes away from the rest of the film, in my opinion. So
I want to dive into the controversy here in a second, but I do want to say that, this is, I knew who Anthony Bourdain was. I never really cared. For whatever reason, the last 20 years or so have seen the rise of the chef celebrity, and it's just never something I've bought into. I don't understand it, and I don't really care about it. And it's always like, and obviously there's a formula that probably Bourdain set, that it's got to be this like bad boy sort of thing where people call you chef. Like, I just don't get it. I don't care. You know, and not that I disrespect any sort of talent that these people may have as you know, culinary experts, but and we'll go into that with the next movie too, by the way, which has some interesting parallels. The idea that a documentary, though, look, first of all, I don't know that this offered any new insight into Anthony Bourdain for me. Like, I think if you knew who Bourdain was and were a fan of his, like, this is probably just a capper on it. You know, this is probably just like a little bit more. I don't know that it really does a great job of introducing you to Bourdain if you have no real prior knowledge of Bourdain. You know, what I wish the movie would have been more about, at the beginning especially, like what made him relatable, what made him successful.
I think I slightly disagree there, because I think that there's a lot of self-deprecation coming from Bourdain in that moment, where you see that Bourdain wasn't necessarily like this, you know, like superstar, really great, like world-renowned chef, but he was a guy who blew the lid open on the restaurant industry with that book.
I get it, and that's not really what I'm saying, though. I'm just talking about like what, like, because there's the element there's the great part where he's like clearly like in a kitchen somewhere, and he's being, you know, he gets a call that he's going to be number 7. His book is number 7 on the New York Times bestseller list, and then he's going to be on Oprah. You know, I'd like a little more exploration. I would have liked to know like what made him, like what got him to that point. As someone who's a bit of a novice, but you know, whatever. So the idea that a documentary isn't supposed to manipulate, I think that's sort of a pipe dream and always has been. You know, there are some blatant things in this. The AI voice thing being the most blatant. You know, that's something that, first of all, I think the problem that people have with it is that it wasn't disclosed and it's so new. But documentaries have been deceptively edited for probably since they began. You know, not every piece of footage that you're seeing matches up to what exactly is happening in the film. You know, you're picking and choosing. So that's sort of a wash to me. You know, this is puzzling in what you call the character assassination of Asia Argento, in that it doesn't really kind of like, you get people telling you, oh, this is like, there's a woman who's, I guess, a country music singer out of Nashville who he befriended, who says like, oh, this is going to end badly. Like, but you're offered no evidence for that. You're just offered these accounts. And, you know, you don't talk to her. And it's not like she's, you know, she's not an unsympathetic character, because she's at the forefront of the Me Too movement, you know, talking about Harvey Weinstein sexually assaulting her. So, you know, then there's that section where you kind of get you have the people that knew Bourdain for a while talking about how he became very, very involved in the Me Too movement. So much so that he like alienated friends, which I guess that's, you know, I mean, you know, for a manipulation tactic, what I guess they're implying is that she, you know, had this heavy influence on him. I don't know that that's really a villainous take for him. Like, it may be extreme, but I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in this that doesn't, that feels like it should be at least addressed or left out. Right. Like, you know, if you want to say like it was, you know, you want to connect the dots between her being spotted with somebody else and his suicide, I think that's fair. Because you can pin like a cause and like that, and that leaves the responsibility on Bourdain, which is ultimately what suicide is. The responsibility lies with the person who does it, right? I mean, that's the forgive me if I'm misstating this, but psychologically, you're not supposed to hold others to blame for someone's action like that. Am I right? Or am I misinterpreting that?
That's on base. Yeah.
So this movie seems to not do that. This movie seems to lay the blame on her in a not so subtle way. And I really don't understand why.
Yeah. Well, so the way that I've been explaining it to people is that if this film was trying to make sense of his death and suicide, it would be one thing. But it seems more interested on pinning it on her. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah. And I don't know that this movie ever does a really good job of kind of explaining or even wondering if his mental state was fragile.
Yeah. I don't think it explores that enough.
Because I don't want to say that it appears that he's kind of on the brink, and a lot of times there's plenty of people that relate to him, and this like kind of parasocial relationship that people have with him, that they think they knew him so well. And I think that's who this documentary is playing to, like that this guy couldn't have possibly done this without some sort of influence. And maybe that's too reductive, but it's not hard to see that, though, in this documentary. Sort of like, oh well, you still would have had this guy around had he not hooked up with this woman. And I feel like that's terribly irresponsible. Whether or not a documentary should be journalism, I think that's up for debate. I think the problematic part about this one is that CNN's name is attached to it.
Sure.
As a co-producer. So, man, I don't know. This movie has like it's interesting until it gets to that point, and then it becomes really, really problematic. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, I don't give a shit about the AI thing. Frankly, I don't care. It's just something that people are new, and people are scared of because it's new.
Well, the one piece that we also neglected was that his estate and his widow or his ex-wife seems to not have been on board with it, which is, I think, another piece of it. She's
softened her stance a little bit on that recently, saying that she realizes he may have understood her to have been okay with that. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is, it's really stupid. It probably didn't need to happen, frankly, because you could have just had someone read that line. Like it's not like
it invited more controversy than it's like value within the movie.
Right.
Provided.
It just became a big thing to complain about.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't care about it as a filmmaking technique. Like, I get it. We talked about this. We messaged about this, but the Ebert documentary, whatever that was called, after he had died, Life Itself, yeah, had a guy that sort of sounded like Ebert reading his stuff. So much so that I read reviews where people thought it was him reading it, which I'm like, he hadn't been able to talk for like 10 years. So I don't know when you thought he recorded this, but so I don't really,
Idiots.
Just dipshits. I don't really have a problem with that. I do have a problem with the way it portrayed this woman as being responsible for his, or at least heavily implying that she's responsible. It's a weird take for this thing to have.
Sure.
Anyway, anything else?
No, we can move on to grades.
Well, what's your grade for Roadrunner?
I'm going to give it a B- on the strength of the rest of the documentary. It really, it's not until those last 20 minutes where it starts to sort of fumble a little bit, and it is problematic. I mean, it's just problematic. I mean, there's no other way to slice this. I do think it does a good job of contextualizing Bourdain. I kind of disagree a little bit on it presupposing a lot of things. I think it contextualizes him just fine. And I think that it, for me, who was a Bourdain novice, I could, get it a little bit more after watching this. The problem is just those last 20 minutes. Again, I don't necessarily think that subject limit should be off limits by any means. I don't think that it's not worth exploring. But again, the intention seems to be to hold this person responsible when they could have, A, involved her and had her side of the story, and B, could have dealt a little bit more into the impact that it had on Bourdain himself rather than saying or implying that it was a direct result of her kind of thing.
Yeah. For those same reasons, I'm going to give it a B- too. I think it's good up until that point. At that point, it really sort of feels like almost a hit piece. I'm not gonna, it's not a total like character assassination, but it is pretty goddamn close.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's supposed to be out. Is it? It's in theaters now, and I think hitting HBO Max fairly soon.
I don't think it's HBO Max, is it?
Yeah, it's an HBO Max co-production because it's CNN, so it's going to be on HBO Max. Anyway, whatever. It's in theaters now. So let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, Pig.
I'm looking for a truffle pig. Someone stole her.
I don't understand.
Tell me who you are.
You made the right choice, being out there in the woods. There's nothing here for you anymore. There's really nothing here for most of us.
So this is the latest movie that all your internet friends are talking about, Nicolas Cage being the most awesome movie ever. Whatever. It's about Nicolas Cage being owning a truffle pig.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of another in the long line of the late period Nicolas Cage weird movies, or weird premise movies, I should say.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cody, tell us about Pig and what you thought of it.
Yeah, definitely weird in its premise, but I don't think that all that weird in its execution. If you've been following Nicolas Cage for the last 15 years, you have probably sat through some dog shit that is just weird for the sake of being weird, and it features Nicolas Cage being gonzo crazy for no reason. At some point Nick Cage became very self-aware and started like amping up the crazy. I would probably like Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans was probably like the turning point, but it may have been before that. But
oh man, I don't know.
But the premise I think is what a lot of people are noticing. Nick Cage has his truffle pig stolen and has to go and try and find it. So it's kind of like a revenge-ish movie with him trying to retrieve this truffle pig. It's really not that weird in terms of what it actually is, which I think is a meditation on grief, and sort of, holding on to certain things. You had mentioned earlier that there is some element of like food culture or celebrity chef culture, which I'm on the other side with you, which I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. I like the food culture. I like the celebrity chef culture. I think it's interesting and fun to follow, and I like movies about food and about things, and I think this is sort of tangentially related to food in a way where, come to find out Nick Cage's character was like a big chef in Portland, and it's where the weirdest parts of the movie have like come in. And I think, my biggest problem with the movie is that I think it should be more straightforward than it is. Where, like, I think all of the parts about him trying to retrieve the pig are good and interesting. I think his relationship with Alex Wolff, the other actor, is interesting and good. I think the father-son thing happening between Alex Wolff and Adam Arkin is interesting. I think that Nick Cage is great. I think that it's one of his most like subtle and subdued performances in a long time, and as a result, I think that he's actually quite good in it. You get like one Nick Cage outburst, and it's really not even that outrageous, but like there are moments in the film where it kind of hints at something strange and weird that feel out of place. Like there's this implication that there's some, like the thing I'm thinking of specifically is there's an implication that there's some kind of like fight club going on.
Yeah.
Restaurant workers that like you get paid to beat up someone and then you get respect as a, like, it's like that piece I just don't get. Like, I don't get why that's in the movie. I don't get, like, it seems to be building this like super dangerous culture around truffles, which is also a major part of the story, and like and again, like Nick Cage meeting like this old seemingly mob boss guy, and there's some sort of implied relationship there.
Yeah,
that whole stuff I think doesn't work. I think this movie is good and quite good when it's at its purest form of like, here's a guy, he had his pig stolen. The pig is representative of something deeper for him, given his past history. And he's trying to hold on to it and retrieve this thing that means a lot to him. When it's that, I think it's great. The other shit that's going on that's trying to make it weird in this kind of like subculture of truffle hunting in Portland, I think is where it gets a little bit, mixed up and easily the weakest part of the movie.
Yeah. Again, that's where it starts to feel like, going back to Gunpowder Milkshake, starts to feel like this weird world building that doesn't really go anywhere. I'm not crazy about the Adam Arkin stuff. That's another like strange like mob boss sort of thing. There's a very odd scene later too that I don't quite get what was happening. Specifically, it's Nicolas Cage cooking a meal.
Yeah, I really like that. I
didn't dislike that part of the scene, but I don't really get it. And maybe that's I don't know. I mean, the meditation on grief, I get. I wasn't quite sure what that part of the movie meant. There's a lot of weird, not a lot of weird, but there's weird in here for the sake of being weird. And again, I'm not sure that how well all that stuff plays, but I feel like with about 10% less weirdness, this thing could have been really great. Right now it's good, but there's a little too much of it that just is kind of off-putting in a way.
Off-putting?
Off-putting.
Yeah.
There's the scene. There's the scene where he like goes to the. There's a very like big. Like major criticism of like the weird sort of culinary stuff, like the foam and
the molecular gastronomy and
yeah.
Like the deconstructed food.
You know what? I've probably done way more like culinary stuff than someone who doesn't like the chef culture would have done. Like we've eaten at like a chef's counter before, and like. Like, do I want to watch fucking sweaty guys yell at each other while I eat? Like, not really. I'll try all the weird food they give me. Like, that part of the culture doesn't really appeal to me. But, like, the tasting menu stuff and, the weird foam crap. Like, I don't know that I've ever had foam.
I have.
I've had stuff with gold in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had octopus and then, like, a pheasant pot pie or something. But, yeah, the culture of like watching the chefs cook, like I don't like it doesn't appeal to me. But like the gastronomy part of it, that's not the weird shit does.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, whatever. yeah, I just feel like this movie is a little bit too weird for its own good. But I do agree that Nicolas Cage is really good at it.
Yeah, I think the one place I disagree is just I don't think it's all that weird. I think there's a couple bits of it. I think it is like you said. I think if it was like 10% less weird, you would have something great. The weirdness does take away from it because I think it pulls you away, and it kind of takes what would be like a really grounded story and then kind of shakes it up and puts it into weird zone where, you know, everything up until that point and aside from that point is, again, like I said, relatively straightforward and normal and believable. But then again, like the addition of this underground place where there's a fight club with, you know, it's
not even that so much. I mean, that's ridiculous. But the fact that like this truffle pig theft that's, you know, early on it's revealed to have been just committed by a couple of junkies is like this weird, like organized crime thing.
Sure.
Like that's the part that like, I don't get it. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm not quite buying into this level here. Anyway, what's your grade for Pig?
I'm giving it a B. I think it gets that recommendation and that score based on, again, the strength of what I think is a good grief story and a performance from Nicolas Cage that is actually subtle, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a B-. I think it's good enough. Like I said, 10% less weird. I think you got something really great. As it stands, it's good. All right, that's going to do it for this week. Next week, Cody, Snake Eyes and Old. We've already discussed.
Yeah.
Anything else on the docket there?
There is. I think we just got to sift through and see which we're going to, like, which of the smaller ones that we're going to cover, because there's like that. I don't know if it opens everywhere, but that I sent you a trailer to a Mark Wahlberg movie that's coming out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then the Val Kilmer doc opens in theaters on Friday. So if we've both seen it, we may cover that and not wait for streaming. But I've seen it already.
I haven't watched it yet. I have the screener sitting in my inbox. But yeah, cool. If you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. Find us on Twitter @CineSnob, Facebook CineSnob Critic, YouTube.com/CineSnob, where all these videos live. Please smash that like and subscribe. Is that what you say?
Yeah.
Cody, the Ramble.
Yeah,
back.
the Ramble is back this week. We had some time off while Jerry was recuperating. But this past week we did Ramble Radios and the regular Ramble. Good Will Hunting's still on hold for now. And hopefully we're able to keep it up.
How is Jerry doing? I hope he's doing well.
He's doing well. Hopefully hopefully on the other side. We'll say that. On the
Good to
not
hear.
the other side of like the earth, but like, you know, the other side of his cancer, not the you know.
The other side of Trump's wall.
Yeah.
The good side.
Hell yeah.
Not the bad side. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, never mind then.
Oh. What?
I mean,
whichever side is the good side. I don't know. You can pick. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know, Jerrod. We might have differing opinions on that.
I mean, you know, if it's like in San Diego, you know.
Uh-huh.
I might rather be in San Diego, but if it's in like Eagle Pass, I'd rather probably cross the border. Have you been to Eagle Pass, man? It sucks.
I've never been to Eagle Pass, no.
Okay.
I think the closest to Mexico that I've been to McAllen. So I've been.
You've never been to Mexico itself?
No, I've been on a cruise and I've been in
you've
Cancun.
been to the touristy. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I've never been in I've never crossed the border.
Never paid the 20 cents to walk across the border like I have?
I have not done that, no.
It's weird. You get like, it's like 20 cents. Like, why? Like, I don't know. It's some like international tariff thing, but.
It is weird. It's always fun talking to people who grew up in the Valley and like hearing stories about driving to Mexico to drink and stuff. I feel like everyone has those stories.
We would go when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was a little safer then, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
We would drive and we'd like stay in Nuevo Laredo, but I remember we would go to the horse races. My grandfather has always been a big horse racing fan. We'd go to the horse races there. And then like go shopping and like buy always ended up somehow with one of those the brass rings or with like your name carved in it. Did you ever get one of those?
No. Did you buy a knockoff Viagra while you were down there?
No, this is before the time of Viagra. This was the 80s. I get my knockoff Viagra comes from the gas
Canada?
station.
Oh.
No, it's the Rhino Horn Deluxe or whatever, like whatever it is, you
get Extends.
Oh, is that still around? I remember those commercials used to be on all the time.
Yeah.
I do like going into the shitty gas stations and seeing like all the fucking weed stuff, and then like the gas station Viagra. It's always something like fuck Rhino 9000.
Uh-huh.
No, we'd go to Mexico and buy belts with our names on them. So I was a dorky kid. Whatever. Yeah.
There's no way
else?
they had your name on a belt with that spelling in Mexico.
No, they'd make it, man. I'm telling
okay.
you. You go down there and get leather goods made. Anyway, whatever. Anything else before we go?
Nah, I think we're good.
Okay, on that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week.